Very well, thank you.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, Debarl, for me, of course, the passing on of the President Daniel Arap Moi is momentous news. It is the news of the day. But more importantly, Debarl, is we've just lost 19 children because of carelessness.
Yes, yes.
It's not that the reports are not there. The guidelines about safe spaces for children in schools, in churches, in mosques, everywhere is there. It's just that we are not following these rules. These guidelines are not being followed. And most schools, unfortunately, Debarl, are not following any of these guidelines, meaning that most schools are dangerous places for our children. And if we're not going to follow the guidelines that were given by the Ministry of Education, which were worked on by the government and UNICEF, then I think the Ministry of Education and our teachers have a lot of questions to answer.
Right, and we remember also there was a sort of a report that was launched recently that with the President Uhuru Kenyatta at the KICC. You'll remind us of
That's
this much later.
This was a study that we had done, Arigato International had done, and it was launched here on the day of the Universal Day of Children. It's about the same issues of violence against children. Our children are undergoing, increasingly facing serious forms of violence. In schools, online, on the internet, bullying, sexual exploitation, and all that. And we wonder what kind of generations are we bringing forth with these levels of violence meted out on our children.
Thank you. So in the meantime, I can be serving you tea, coffee. What will
sure.
you fancy?
My tea is actually ready there.
Oh, this is your tea.
That's right.
Fantastic. Let me just tie it up for you as we hear from Brigadier. Good morning.
Good morning, Debarl. How are you?
You know, this is my kiosk. Yeah, you guys have to check in early in the morning for some tea.
Yes,
This is
I'll lift it,
yeah.
Debarl.
Just continue, Brigadier.
yes. For me, indeed, also a very momentous moment on the death of our former President Daniel Arap Moi. And indeed, my message to all Kenyans is, for all of us, time will come. Time will come to join the Mecca.
Yeah.
How are you prepared to face that time? How are you prepared?
How are you prepared?
Yeah, we only prepare and ensure that when the time comes, we go happily to face the Mecca. On the other incident about the children,
Yes.
I want to challenge my friends in private and corporate security. For a long time, this area has been neglected. We need to focus back on how best to provide that security across board in all sectors. I hope we'll discuss that as we go along.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Dr. Hassan Khanenje, you seem to be wearing a very chapfallen face today.
Well, you know, when Baba passes on, the original Baba, before today, of course, it's always a sad day. But first of all, with the children, you know, it's always very, very sad when you lose kids. You know, this is the future of the country in very, you know, silly circumstances. And I don't even think that the guidelines in schools are not really being followed necessarily, is that they're never enforced. Just like lots of guidelines and rules and regulations, this kind of are never enforced. And so when you do not enforce, then systems that do not acculturate themselves to the idea that certain things should not be done, should be done in a certain way. Now, coming back to Muzee's date, much has been said and much is going to be said on this program today. Yeah, but what I would like to say is a lot of times it doesn't matter much about how you started. What matters is about how you finish. And one thing we remember is Mzee allowed the peaceful transfer of power against a lot of ideas, or at least what most people thought was not possible. And I think the whole country and the whole world was proud of Kenya. It was one of the proudest moments in Kenyan history when we witnessed one man in a wheelchair being sworn in and another old man leaving power. That was something very proud for us.
Fantastic. And when you talk about transition as well, we also are aware about this week with the East African, of course, East African Court of Justice, which will be also deliberating on, the presidential term of Yoweri Museveni as well. So On the other hand, we can see it was a smooth transition of power. On the other hand, within the East African broader aspect as well, we have challenges. We have challenges of presidential terms as well. People want to tinker with the constitution all the way from Rwanda, Burundi as well. Uganda also has the same case as well. Let's hear from Hamid Hashi.
Well, Debarl, you know, Shakespeare said that death is strict in its arrest. And we have lost 18 children, and we have lost our former president. And of course, the nation is mourning. Of course, the country instinctively understands that this is the end of an era and a beginning of a new one. The baton has now been passed to a new generation, and the old nationalist generation, Debarl, that fought for the freedom of this country and ruled this country are no longer with us, or maybe very few are left. And as you know, in Africa, they say that if an old man dies, it's like a library has burnt. So I really believe that probably one of the best, maybe the greatest contribution, as my colleagues have said, the three things to President Moi, and really what describes him the most is after he left the presidency.
Yeah, let's pick one because I think we have a length of time to actually discuss all
I'll
these
say,
things.
I'll say
So
this
is
one
just
part.
introductory remarks.
This one part is that after the president left office, and all the leaders who replaced him said that he should go and look after goats. And lo and behold, those leaders themselves finally succumbed to saying that they were not doing the right thing as well. It was Charity Ngilu who said that in the National Assembly some few years ago. So, Debarl, the country, tragic, 18 children gone. It's probably one of the things that needs an inquiry into how children are studying in schools. It is a very sad day for Kenya in total.
All right, let's hear from Erastus Moincha. Also, we should bring to bear the issue of terrorists. I think also during his regime is when we had, that particular 1998 terrorist attack at an American embassy, which was just here in town by then. And, that really jolted the country because we were not really used to such sort of, caliber of attacks from the terrorists. And the way he handled the whole situation as the president, how did you observe that? Mr. Erastus Moincha, if you may remember that, Balozi.
If you permit me, Debarl,
Sure.
I think let's mourn the children and then, of course, pass on our condolences to the family of the late President Moi. And I like it that we come back because there's a lot that one can learn from the experience of the Moi era. And for now, I think our hearts and minds really are focused on the children, the 18 children, because here is a life that has been cut short. From young, promising life, for what my colleagues have said, something that could have been avoided. And when you look at the scenario, you saw that mother, you saw that family that has lost that hope they had. And I think we stand with them during this time. And there is one aspect I learned from that story. That young boy who bravely, after he saw Sam lying down, went to try and pull Sam out of that incident. I mean, you can see that humanity in that young little kid. And I think this is the kind of value that we should inculcate in our society. I think we commend the county government because they have now set up a fund to support the families, but also the national government because they moved quickly. The minister went there to launch investigations. I think my colleagues have said, and we can't stress enough of it, that these days whenever you attend a meeting in any of these big hotels and all this, the first thing you are briefed on is security. And I think we should make it a point to drill security. We have said time and again here that security should be people-owned, people-driven. And we should, in fact, even in our curriculum, try to bring this into our kids to understand how they see environment around them and what they should do in the case of a situation. I mean, what you see in these stories, there was a panic trigger what caused it, whether it was a teacher or a student, and that is bound to happen where you have a lot of people. But then how you help people to, how they behave. If there's breakup or fire, how do you run out of the building so that you can save lives? But our hearts and minds are on those children and their families.
Yes, indeed. Professor Naomi Damba.
Debarl, children are our responsibility. Every single person, grown-up responsibility. Children are our future. And we, as a nation, are responsible for the livelihood of our children. With regard to Mr. Moi, let me just say this as an open line. When all the dust settles, and when you peel the banana, inside was not an angel or the kind of tyrant picture that a number of people are proposing, but a real person.
A real person. Report is what I was struggling to remember, which actually was commissioned by the Ministry of Education to find out. It was a task force, and they came up with recommendations on what safety of schools should be. Are they also implementing this according to Claire Omolo report? We shall be also teasing out some of these issues with our panelists here, and we have also Dr. Mustafa, who really works very extensively with the welfare of children as well and their security. So we shall. The last imperial president is a splash today. Daniel Arap Moi, 1924-2020. Good man, dirty game. He was not perfect, neither was he modern in his practice of politics, appreciation of human rights and the finer points of economic management, but he was a good nationalist, humble and compassionate. Moi was also a wily, ruthless, self-styled professor of politics who wore power like a tailor-made suit, striding across corridors of state with a self-assurance at variance with his modest beginnings in Koruyeng War Village, that is in Baringo County. And you have a full coverage today.